And maybe start off with the audience here. Introduce yourself, introduce your business. Tell us what's MarketLink, what makes it special?
MarketLink is, I guess essentially the best way to describe our company is we're all about humanizing digital commerce. What we do is actually really interesting in watching the two previous speeches and how you kind of come at it, maybe the same problem from different ways. Our background and history is more from a call center and inside sales perspective than marketing. So we worked for, or I think we're 28th year in business, and we worked with many of the largest software companies in the world and have for a number of years. Our history was all around doing it from the perspective of selling and looking after customers. So some of the things are talking about individualized attention. I think Greg, it was you talked about customer centric, communicating one-on-one with a customer. So I think it was 2002 when we hired a gentleman that was working for one of our clients and implemented a customer-centric sales training program. So that seems like a long time ago, and looking at it like it's something that's brand new. But we invested heavily in that over the years, and then over time, thinking about 2004, we started to shift our focus on how can we try to humanize and create a human element to digital commerce. And I think when we first started, the concept was, I think we had a picture of a website with somebody, sitting and looking at a website, kind of pulling their hair out, going, "Can I please talk to somebody? Will somebody please help me?" And as it's evolved, and I think, again, I'll try to build on some of the other slides and conversations, and Jeff's talking about predictive analytics and real-time personalization. Really, when you're engaging a visitor on your website in real time, and what we do is identify and predict who the individuals are that are going to be predisposed to wanting a human element to that digital commerce activity, and then we engage them in a fashion that's personalized to them, kind of a concierge process all the way through a sales process for those that need it. We find that there's a big percentage of visitors on most websites that maybe not a huge percentage of people, can range anywhere from 10 to 15 to as high as 25%. But then typically those visitors are really, typically very valuable and are willing to, if you give them some TLC, prepared to spend more money than if you just leave them to their own devices.
Steve, you're also a board advisor to MarketLink, as well as your full-time role at Vidyard. Tell us a little bit about your experiences at Hootsuite, what you're doing at Vidyard, and then maybe some of your thoughts on what MarketLink is doing and some of the ways it's different from what else we see in the market.
Sure. First, any people here heard of Hootsuite? Quite a few. Anybody use Hootsuite? Yeah. So it's sounds like most people do. I figured that you would here. So I joined Hootsuite as the 27th employee to help monetize the business. And at that point, we had no revenue, 27 people, $1.9 million in funding, based in Vancouver, and couldn't get funding, which sounds crazy now. And we were able to grow pretty quick. We grew revenue 56,000% in the next 4 years. When I left, just at the end of December, we had almost 900 employees. And confidentially, so don't tweet this, but 100 million in revenue, so it went from 0 to 100 in that, and with offices all around the world. And so it was a really, really good run. And the real core thing I always look at is, how do you solve people's problems? So I'm sure most of you have had issues and problems about how do you manage all the different social interactions out there. It's just noise. So 5 years ago it was social consumers, you and I and everybody got online, and then brands started waking up and like, well, how do we manage this? This is really bad, and we moved to social business, and then now it's moving more to that social consumer where everybody externally facing. You can't log in natively. So that was really the whole Hootsuite story. It was a really, really fun run, great ride, and felt super glad about that. And then I'm not Canadian, but I'm now at another Canadian company called Vidyard. It's a Battery Bessemer and Salesforce Ventures backed company that does video sales and marketing. So it's another, I think, the hot area where people are struggling with. Everyone knows content. I think Jeff was mentioning content's king. Well, social content is massively hot, but you look at the millennials, what do they look at? it's video. You know, it's 8 billion videos a day or something like that on Facebook. So how do you manage that as a business? You know, how do you manage that if you put it on YouTube, you know, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and all these different places? That's what Vidyard does. So super excited to be on another company, another Canadian company. I should be an honorary Canadian. Anybody Canadians here? Yeah, there you go.
Hey,
Beauties.
I lived near Canada once. Well, so Don, when you talk about MarketLink, humanizing digital commerce, I think it kind of goes to a stat that I'd want to share with everyone here. So I was at a conference a couple weeks ago, the MarTech conference in San Francisco, and they kind of studied the industry and how many vendors are in the space. Just 5 years ago, 2011, there was 115 MarTech, marketing technology vendors in the space competing for all of our business. Today, there's now over 3,500 marketing technology vendors now competing. So it's a super, super noisy space. Many of these businesses are SaaS, software as a service businesses. Many of them are competing for the eyes and the ears and the wallets of chief marketing officers. And almost to a T, all of them say, well, we can kind of do your digital. We can do digital commerce. We can make things digital. But MarketLink, you're saying you're humanizing digital commerce, which to me sounds a bit contrarian. You're adding the human element into that transaction. Tell us a little bit more about how you see that working. What does that really mean for a business?
Okay, well, one of the stats that was up there was that the number one priority for CEOs was to, enhance the customer experience. So when you think from that perspective, and when we first started to talk to Gartner a number of years ago about our business model, they said just what you said. Everybody's going the direction of digital. When people don't, the millennials don't even want to talk to anybody. It's text. They don't even want to use the phone. But it's not everybody. But there's a large percentage of people that will visit your websites that are going to want to talk to a human being. They are going to want to feel like, hey, there's somebody personally looking after them. And there's a lot of things you're going to find out just by engaging and talking to your customers. You're never going to find out in a digital realm. And you don't that interaction and that feedback just isn't going to happen to the same degree of precision than when you talk to human beings. So I think that when you look at how in humanizing the process, really what you're looking at saying, from our perspective, you're going to leave probably 20 to 25% of the potential revenue that you could have with your shoppers on the table if you don't invest more. And you don't want to do it with everybody, and you don't want to do it all the time. We were talking about this as an example. I'm a big SPG guy. You're talking about booking a hotel room. When I go to a hotel, I can book 30 seconds from the door. I don't need to spend any more time than that. And I travel a lot. I go to my app. I book it. I don't want to talk to somebody. But then I'm meeting my family for a vacation. My kids live in different parts of North America, and I want to have a vacation. I'm going to need a couple hotel rooms. I want to make sure that everything's really good and everything. Just by the behavior that I'm exhibiting on the site at that time should indicate to that hotel chain that, well, I'm going to need some more personalization and some more TLC than I typically would. I'm a platinum customer, and they should be reaching out to me at that point because I might go VRBO, or I might go to one of their competitors. Yeah. So it's critical to look at each one of your shoppers and your visitors in real time and say what's the behavior and that's happening to them, and be willing to engage them in a fashion that's going to make them the happiest and have that customer success and make the most money.
And to be clear, this is a human being on the other end of a phone call that is initiated through the MarketLink platform, basically reaching out saying, hey, do you want to speak to somebody? You, Don, booking that hotel for your family.
Yeah.
Talking to somebody there. I'm just curious, just maybe get a sense of the audience. How many of you, say, shop on Amazon or do digital shopping? You just push the buy now button. Of course, most everybody in the room. How many of you also shop but also want to talk to somebody because you have to clarify something as you're shopping? A lot of you as well. How many of you have businesses that have call centers where you have someone actually responding, selling online? Probably numbers. Okay, so Don, there's some potential customers right there for you. I guess the point being is that not every consumer experience is one-sized or is the same, right? Sometimes I'm happy to push the buy now button on Amazon. I don't need to talk to anybody at Amazon. However, if it's a considered purchase, something where I need to confirm which side of the hotel the rooms are on, if it's on the beach side or on the road side or some other element where a human being could make it faster for me to make that purchase versus me searching for that myself.
Yeah, I think that considered purchase is a very good term. And typically, what we'll see, if you can communicate effectively with a visitor or a shopper in such a way that it's just a positive experience, it's personalized, it's at the right time, it's not annoying, it enhances the buying experience, they'll spend more even if they don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I mean, typically, if we extend an invitation out to somebody, we're going to be under 10% of people that are going to respond and say, yes, I'd like to talk to a salesperson. But the 90% that even if they respond, if you do it right, then they'll spend more money and they'll leave happier. And then the 10% that do respond, if you engage them automatically and you start through a sales process, typically those people, and you know, that's where the predictive analytics are a really critical piece, because you don't want to spend money and invest in those visitors. That's the whole reason why companies started you know, e-commerce sites is with, you know,
Call centers can be expensive. Like
very much so.
A call can be
Yeah.
expensive.
And you don't want to spend the time and the effort and the money on a prospective shopper or a visitor if you're not going to get a return on that investment. You could do it as a one-off, or you can do it over the lifetime value. You're looking at that customer success. If you know, if the customer experience is the #1 factor for CEOs, and they might say, well, I'm willing to spend more to build my brand, to build those interactions. But you know, really, you can also boil it down to the economics of, if I invest this money today, I'll look after the shopper, I'll look after this customer, they're going to spend a lot more money. That ROI alone should justify, if you're doing it in the right areas with the right shoppers.
Yeah, and as Jeff was kind of showing in his chart, the reason why there's all this investment in these marketing technologies, at the end of the day, what we're trying to drive is a conversion. Well, we got to acquire the customer. Assuming we've got them, how do we then convert them? And I know, Steve, you got some interesting stories around your sales teams, I guess, at Hootsuite, and what happened when you introduced a human element to the sales process and how conversions changed or grew.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. A lot of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Constant Contact as well, so I spent some years there. And what was really interesting, and this kind of gave me the background for Hootsuite, Constant Contact, when they first started, I knew the CEO. We worked at a database company years ago, and she swore she didn't want to have any live people talking to anybody. We both lived through that world. It was going to be all online, so the conversions were just next to nothing. This is real nothing. Then she's like, all right, we got to 12%, you know, all kind of interactions. So 12% of the trialers then would convert. And again, not a well-known story, but Constant Contact was 2 weeks away from shutdown when the market crashed in 2001. And one of the senior execs in desperation said, hey, why don't we start contacting these people? We have no money, so he started getting on. And when they did, they just on this, you know, small sample size, the conversion went from 12% to 22%. It was like, that's pretty good. You know, in the 2 weeks, just the day the money was running out for the shutdown, they got funding. I wasn't there at that point. Then they started testing that, and they found that and these are all SMBs, right? So it's a little different places. If they then went to responding within the day, the conversion went from 22 to 24% to 38%. I'm like, that's amazing. What about if we do it in an hour? And again, this is a while ago. And then it went down to 28%. So small businesses got a little freaked out by too much contact back then. So when I joined Hootsuite, you know, it was all 100% online revenue at that point. And we were signing up people. We built the team. And I'm like, let me just see what happens. There's got to be some people out there. We had a free product, a pro product, and an enterprise. And enterprise, you know, the White House, Pepsi, you know, you name the organizations. There are some really, really big ones around the world that use the enterprise product. And at the end, that was 70% of our revenue. But on the online, I kept thinking they were missing something. So I remember that. We tested called them social media coaches, and they weren't salespeople. So the Constant Contact were really salespeople with a quota. These were people, just help. They're raising their hand, I need help. And immediately, it was almost a 50% lift in ARPU, average revenue per user, that we got. The conversion was, the attrition as we tracked it was cut in half because they had that live connection. So we ended up rolling it out. We had our headquarters in Vancouver, opened up an office in London. There's 160 people there, and we had social media coaches there. And then our APAC was in Singapore. And at the end, it was just a huge part of what we were able to do. We had 10,000 people signing up a day for the free product, and 500 to 700 for our pro, and that reach out became just an automatic thing that we did. And it was a very small fraction to take advantage of it. If you know what you want, it's perfect. But if you don't, we can convert you. So it was Yeah, real.
And I think that's maybe a key takeaway, and maybe some final thoughts from each of you on this, is that it's not one size fits all. Despite all the investment we as marketers are making in marketing technology, despite everything we try to segment our audience and position our products and message to that right product to the right person at the right time, at the end of the day, there's still some human beings that want to talk to a human being and clarify or drive that considered sale to the ultimate purchase. So maybe Don, some final thoughts on think about predictive. What are some things that maybe the data and the technology investments can actually drive in creating that human touch when it's the right time?
Well, the predictive piece of it, I mean, you have to have the data. Maybe the argument is that because when you are talking to people one-on-one, there's inherently a requirement to make the data that much more precise. I don't want to start any fights, but if you're marketers, you can put a message out there and you can get it it doesn't have to be as precise, but when you're dealing with salespeople and each data point is a customer and potentially through to their commission check, the data has to be precise, and when the data is precise, the more precise your data is, then the more accurate your predictive capabilities will be and your analytics will be, and you'll be able to identify by engaging your visitors who are those people that it does make sense to engage and make that incremental investment. Because if you invest in the right shoppers, the right visitors, I think there was a study years ago where, and I don't quote me on this, but it was like airlines found like they got something like 85 or 90% of their revenue came from 2% of their flyers, which is, why the extreme amount of spend and expense that goes to looking after those flyers. It's the same with people on your site. There are going to be shoppers on your site that, given the opportunity to engage with a visitor or to engage with a real live person, they're going to leave a lot happier and they're going to spend a lot more money, and your ROI on those people can be exponential.
Steve, final thoughts on kind of this idea of predictive and connecting it to that human experience?
Yeah, and I mean, I think we all agree it's just a major game changer. Where that's going, the 5 lessons in 5 years that I kind of boiled down, one of the 5 lessons was data. Just getting that data and the predictive data. You have to have a purpose, you have to have people, you have to have a framework that makes sense, you have to have a culture for a company. But data and the predictive data is just going to be so powerful. And one of the reasons I was excited about MarketLink and the board was that we have to humanize also what we're doing. There does have to be a human element to what we're doing, people kind of element to it. So hope that helps.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you both.
Thanks
Round
all.
of applause.